spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
When we do have secret prisons, that is not what America's all about.
Let's go to Mark in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. All the confetti has been dropped. The balloons are gone. Charlotte and Tampa are trying to return back to normal. All the thousands of delegates have gone home, and we are less than 2 months away from Election Day. So who won round one, the convention round? Probably the most important round up till the debate round that's coming up in October. Who won the round? Who's ahead? And most importantly, why? To help analyze this, I've invited one of my favorite guests here, Republican strategist Mike Lane, the president of Intelligence Strategies. Mike, I'll give you my 2 cents on this. I think we won, and I'll tell you who delivered the knockout blow. The best fighter in the Democratic Party, Bill Clinton. I think Bill Clinton gave the best speech by far in either convention. I'm not knocking Obama. Obama wasn't the best. In fact, I actually think he was the third best. I think Michelle Obama gave our second best convention speech. And I think what Bill Clinton did in his wonderful, wonky, folksy manner was specifically explain the differences between the parties, the differences between Obama and Romney. And Romney and Ryan, they just didn't give any specifics. Their convention, other than Clint Eastwood, which I really enjoyed, the rest of it I think was kind of boring. I think we won round one. I think it will be remembered in the future that the pivotal moment in the election of 2012 was Bill Clinton's speech. And from here on out, I think Obama's going to be ahead all the way to Election Day.
We'll see, Mark. I don't know. Look, Romney got what I call a dead cat bounce out of his convention.
A point, maybe.
No, he got 4 points.
One poll showed 4 points.
And within a week, he was settled back to where he was. As of this weekend, yesterday, the president is up 4 points. We'll see within 1 week if he floats back to where he was. I don't know that I agree or disagree with your prediction that this was seminal. I actually think the debates for the first time are going to be the most important part of the campaign when they have not been the most important part of the campaign in any cycle up to this point. We'll see, but I will concede that the Romney bounce was not as energetic.
Some pollsters have said there was no bounce at all. Now, one poll showed 4 points. The average of polls averages about 1 point for Romney in his bounce. Let me ask you, what did you think of Bill Clinton's speech? I mean, that I would think as a Republican that sort of tore you apart. That was a great speech, wasn't it?
Typical Bill Clinton. He thought he was more important than anything else. He went well past 11 o'clock. At 5 to 11,
nobody minded.
The reason your TV got brighter at 5 to 11 was all the senior citizens in Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia turning their television sets off, going to sleep, saying, "Oh, give me a break. This guy's going to talk forever," which he did.
I think he was riveting. I really do.
No, he wasn't riveting, but it was a good speech.
I think. What do you think was the best speech of the two conventions?
Probably the Clinton speech.
All right, okay.
But I wouldn't call it riveting, but it was probably the best speech of the two conventions.
Well, the only thing more riveting than Bill Clinton, I think, was Clint Eastwood.
I love Clint. I thought it was funny.
I loved it too. Although I have to tell you, some of my friends actually turned off the TV because it was too painful for them to watch.
It was funny. It was hysterical.
They were like, this doddering old man has gone crazy.
They don't have a sense of humor.
And we don't. I don't think he was totally there. I do think he was rambling and didn't really know what he was doing, but I loved it. It was the only unscripted moment of the Republican convention, or probably of either convention, and I loved it myself.
Well, there was one other unscripted moment, and that was the attempt to put God and Jerusalem back into the platform, when unfortunately the delegates on the floor didn't understand what their role was, and they voted against God 3 times before Bill Clinton crowed.
Actually, I suspect, as I heard it, that there was a majority for putting it back in. Whether there was 2/3 or not, I'm not so sure. But I'll tell you something about the platforms I found very interesting. The Republican platform, of course, had some very extreme things in it. It said that women couldn't have an abortion even in cases of rape or incest. It said that guns shouldn't have any limit on the amount of bullets they could have. 100 bullets apparently is not enough. And Romney tried to distance himself, particularly from the abortion plank, but he didn't try to force the platform to change. At least when Barack Obama saw things in the platform that he didn't agree with, taking out God, taking out Jerusalem, he forced it over the head of the delegates right back in there. It sounds to me like Obama's a lot more in charge of his party than Romney's in charge of his.
Well, Mark, I'm tempted to just say that I agree with Bob Dole, who in 1996, when he was asked about the platform and whether it was going to be helpful or hurtful to his chances, he said, don't know, haven't read it, don't intend to. Nobody reads the platform. Nobody goes there. I could talk about the extreme positions in the Democratic platform if you want me to.
Go ahead, please do. Well,
okay.
What's extreme in the Democratic platform?
Well, I think that public financing, public taxpayer financing of abortion is a move in an extreme direction. For 40 years, we settled on the Hyde Amendment language, which is that we will not have taxpayer financing.
At the federal level, as you well know, different states have different views on that. Some states do publicly fund abortions, some don't. Shouldn't this be a states' rights issue?
But that's not what they've done. This is a federal platform, what they're going to accomplish as a federal party. And they want taxpayer financing of abortion, and they want unlimited access to any kind of abortion, including partial birth abortion at taxpayer expense. I find that to be a little gruesome and a little extreme. I'm willing to say that, platforms are where, a lot of people that, feel like they need to be important go and stuff like that. But yours has more extreme moments than ours.
Well, it's interesting that you raise abortion as well. Why do you think Romney did not change his platform if he disagreed with it so much? Why didn't he change it?
Because it's irrelevant.
So, but you made a big deal out of God in Jerusalem, as did Fox News, and then you say it's irrelevant when it comes to your own platform.
No. It only became relevant because it blew up on the floor of the convention. If you just let the people in the platform committee do what the people in the platform committee do, it's not relevant.
I actually disagree.
But when you take it to the floor for a floor fight, then it becomes relevant.
I appreciated that they put it back. I got to tell you, as someone who does believe Jerusalem is the capital of Israel.
Well, of course it is.
Of course it is. But I didn't like that they took it out, and I appreciate that President Obama forced them through some heavy-handedness to put it right back in. I actually was pleased about that.
Let me say, formerly rising star in the Democratic Party,
Antonio Villaraigosa. I still like him.
He's
what?
Not,
What's wrong with Antonio Villaraigosa?
That 3-minute YouTube tape has sunk any chances he has of going any place
so
other than
he should have, after the first vote, just said 2/3 having voted in the affirmative, whether it was or it wasn't.
It never got any better after the first vote. So yes.
Well,
the
no, actually,
is,
they should have done it after the first vote.
If you have the gavel at a convention, you do that.
Let's talk about the speeches, because it struck me that the real difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and you can look at it at every level. You can look at it Romney versus Obama, Biden versus Ryan, even Michelle Obama versus Ann Romney. At every level, the Democrats are giving more specifics, more details, and all I really heard from the Republicans were platitudes. Other than, Ryan said some things that were just false. But other than things that were clearly false, I mean, Romney, we still don't know what he's going to do if he's elected.
I think we know exactly what Romney is going to do if he's elected.
He was on Meet the Press today, and he couldn't answer any of the basic specific questions.
Yesterday?
Excuse me, yesterday, yes.
Okay.
Meet the Press yesterday.
I actually didn't catch that. I'm disappointed in myself.
Check it out, because you'll find that he's asked very specific questions. He's asked, for example, you say you want to close a bunch of loopholes in order to give these tax cuts to the millionaires. Which loopholes will you close? He refused to say. He would not say. And then Ryan came in in the Washington Post today and said, well, we'll discuss that after the election.
Right.
Should you really vote for a candidate who says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do after the election?
Here's what Romney is going to do. He's going to bring the corporate tax rate down to 25%.
How will he pay for it? Who knows?
By closing loopholes.
Which ones? Who knows?
Well, that'll be something that he's going to have to work with the Democratic Congress on to be effective.
Make the Democrats close the loopholes. That's a great idea. We'll give $5 trillion to the rich, and we'll make the Democrats raise taxes on the middle class. Here's the news. The Democrats are not going to raise taxes on the middle class. So we'll just add $5 trillion to the deficit then.
No.
Under President Romney.
No, because it's a package in Romney's mind, and you can't lower the corporate tax rate to 25% without closing the loopholes to pay for it.
Okay.
That's Romney's plan.
If he's relying on Democrats to raise taxes on the middle class,
he has to.
It's never going to happen. So the answer is Romney cannot do what... I love what he said. I'll give you all the goodies, and the Democrats will cause you pain.
Okay, first of all, we're talking about the corporate tax rate. We're not talking about, we're talking about corporate loopholes here, not personal loopholes.
Let's talk about personal loopholes.
The personal tax will also be lowered for everybody, and that will be closed in part by working on closing loopholes.
Mortgage interest deduction, child credit,
whatever negotiation he can work out with the Congress.
Let's say the Democrats say, Romney, show us what you want, or we're not negotiating.
I think he'll be a lot more forthcoming than the president is in terms of sharing stuff and meetings with them.
Why do you think he's refusing to tell us before the election?
Nobody tells you exactly what's going to go down before the election because
Obama's
it's not been negotiated yet. But Obama hasn't told us anything.
Sure. Obama put together a package to cut $4 trillion. Boehner refused it. Obama has said very clearly he'd raise taxes on the rich. He's made very clear what he's going to do.
First of all, Obama wants to raise taxes on the middle class, not on the rich.
Well, I don't think $250,000 is middle class, personally. Maybe you do.
Do you live in Washington, D.C.?
It's still $250,000 a year is not middle class.
First of all, it's $200,000.
Even in Washington, D.C.
First of all, it's $200,000. And it certainly is middle class. You can't tell me. I mean, if you want to go out to Billings or Butte or something like that, I'll grant you that's pretty comfortable. That is middle class in Washington, D.C. It's middle class in New York City. It's middle class in Los Angeles. It's middle class in Chicago.
The vast majority of people in
San Francisco
are not making $250,000, Mike.
I didn't say they were.
They're just not.
I didn't say they were. But it's, Mark, you don't have one number that is middle class. You have a broad range of numbers. You go from.
Here's the thing, Mike. What Romney's saying is that he wants to cut taxes on the rich, and he just said on Meet the Press yesterday.
Yes, the taxes should be cut on everybody so that the money can stay to the economy so that we can create jobs and invest. That's the whole point.
Okay.
It's not who needs the money and who doesn't need the money.
So funny.
The economy needs the money.
Here's what I think is so hilarious. Republicans really care about the deficit when Democrats are in charge. They really got this deficit clock. Obama's terrible. When Republicans are in charge, it's Dick Cheney, deficits don't matter. George Bush, run up a bunch of wars on the credit card. And now Mitt Romney wants to double the national debt, and he won't tell us how he's going to pay for it.
No.
I love the idea that Republicans, let me be very clear. Your party is not fiscal conservative anymore.
Go back. Mitt Romney wants to double the national debt? No.
$5 trillion.
No, he wants to have the national debt. Double it.
I'm sure he wants puppies and rainbows too. But the answer is he's never going to do it, and you and I know it. And if he were going to do it, he would tell us how.
In fact, I know exactly how he's going to do it. I know how he's going to cut spending. He's got that in significant detail. That's been published. It's on his website. You can look it up. I mean, that's
he's going to raise defense spending. Mike, when we come back, here's my question for you, because we have to take a break. When we come back, I want to know if in the debates, when he's asked a very specific question, what loopholes are you going to close? Is he going to look the American people in the eye and say, I'll tell you later?
He may give an example, but I will guarantee he has been more specific than the president so far in this campaign, and he'll be more specific in the debates.
Folks, if you want to join this discussion, I encourage you to do so. The toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. Get a word in edgewise. We'd love to hear from you.
But for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit ASHA.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. This is Mark Levine. It is post-convention time. It is 57 days to the election, and I'm discussing with my guest, Mike Lane, what the results of the conventions were. Mike, are you really going to argue with a straight face that you think the Republicans did equally as well as the Democrats in their conventions?
I said it remains to be seen. What was the objective? The objective was to define your candidate and your issues on your terms. I believe the Republicans accomplished that. I believe the Democrats accomplished that. I believe it takes 7 to 10 days for the polls to settle out afterwards to see who really did the better job. And I'm not willing to claim credit or give credit at this point.
Here's what I find surprising. I didn't hear philosophy at the Republican. I watched both conventions pretty much in full. I can't say I heard every speech, but I heard most every speech. Certainly heard all the major speeches. Well, let's just compare the wives of the candidates. Ann Romney came out there, seems very likable, but it seemed to me that she was just saying, Mitt Romney's a nice guy I met at a dance. And other than saying, I love you women, which didn't seem to be very, very persuasive, she's like, Mitt's a nice guy, he's a good guy. Whereas it seemed to me Michelle Obama didn't just say Obama's a good guy, which of course she said her husband's a good guy, but she wove in a life history, and she talked about her father, I think, in very moving ways, and talked about the fact that student loans had gotten them into college and gotten them a chance to succeed in life. And in talking about her life, she talked about how some government benefits had helped them achieve what they had achieved. And I think was making an argument for the Democratic Party, not just praising her husband.
Okay. Well, first of all, as you know, the president has had a huge financial advantage up to the point of the conventions. And the amount of money...
Romney's raised more than he did just last month.
But he wasn't allowed to use it until post-convention, post-nomination. Pre-nomination, the president has had a huge, almost 4-to-1 financial advantage over Romney. They've used that time.
What about the super PACs? That doesn't include super PAC money.
No, that does not include super PAC money.
Right, no. which dwarfs
They have used that money to hammer and lie about Romney and to create this monster that doesn't exist and to essentially make him unacceptable and unpalatable to the American people. I think Ann Romney used that time very, very effectively to introduce the American people to the real Mitt Romney, the guy who cares about the average person, the guy who works hard, the guy who's got a great family, who was a great husband, took care of her when she was really, really sick. It humanized him as an antidote to the lies that the Democrats have been telling about him for the past 6 months. I thought it was a fantastic speech.
And what
lie? Okay. Yeah. Mitt Romney causes cancer in women. That's the biggest lie that we've all heard.
Mitt Romney causes cancer in women.
In women who are married to this guy Joe, who does commercials for the Obama campaign.
No. The claim was, and
the claim was Mitt Romney caused her cancer.
No, the claim was that a lot of the many thousands of people that Mitt Romney has fired have lost health insurance, and this woman died.
That wasn't the claim.
Partly because of it.
No, the claim was because Mitt Romney caused her cancer and didn't give her insurance.
I don't recall. And in fact, I saw that ad, and I don't recall the guy ever saying Mitt Romney caused her cancer. What he said was Mitt Romney fired his wife, and when she got cancer, she couldn't get the health insurance she needed.
Actually, she didn't work for any.
He did. Fired him.
He worked.
Fired him, and then he didn't have the insurance.
He actually took an early buyout. He didn't, he turned down an early buyout.
They forced him to leave.
And when the company failed, then he lost his insurance. But here's the thing: she had the coverage.
She didn't have his coverage.
She had her own
because he didn't have a job.
She had her own coverage.
And it was insufficient, obviously.
Not obviously. She may have had an insufficient doctor, but we don't know that her insurance was insufficient.
Look, we do know because obviously it wasn't enough. The heart of it is this.
We don't.
Ann Romney made clear that Mitt Romney is a fine father, a fine husband, good to the people in his family, good to the people in his church. I don't dispute that. I have no reason to dispute that.
But Obama has disputed that for 6 months.
No,
yes,
it's disputed that he's good to his wife or his kids or his church. Yeah, the question is not that.
They've made him into a cold Roboton.
Well, that's right.
Which is
the question is the thousands of workers that he's fired. That's the question. Strangers. I'm sure he's good to his wife and kids.
Mark, when a company
he's actually
fails,
almost good to his dog, although he puts him on the roof of his car. The question is not his family. He's a good family man. The question is...
You're the first one to admit that on the Democratic side. You're the very first one to admit that.
He's a good family man?
Yes.
I think Bill Clinton said so in his speech. He's a good family man. That's not the issue. And I assume you can see Barack Obama's a good family man.
I would.
Okay. But that's not the issue. The issue is not how he treats his friends and family.
But that's the issue that Obama has made.
How he treats... Not about his friends and family.
Yes.
The question is how he treats strangers. The question is how he treats people companies that work for companies that Bain took over leveraged, caused to go bankrupt and lost their jobs. That's the issue. I don't recall. You show me. Was there a single Democrat that said he wasn't a good family man? Who said that?
I believe the guy who runs that PAC has indicated that there is no redeeming value about Mitt Romney at all. Not one.
Well, I haven't seen that.
And that is the president's former director of communications. Closely works with the White House.
No, I haven't seen that. To me, the argument was, and some people think it went too far, that because Mitt Romney caused all these people to lose their jobs, some of them suffered accordingly. I don't really think that's disputable, is it?
Yes, it is.
Did he cause them to lose their jobs, or did they suffer?
Yes, it is. But Mark, when a company goes bankrupt and when a company fails, notwithstanding the huge effort that a venture capital firm comes in and tries to save it, invest that money in it, and is unable to save that company, not 100% of everybody is a winner. It's just the real life doesn't work that way.
There's a huge difference between a going concern that is failing and a venture capital firm comes in and tries to save it, which is your image, and what really happened in most of these companies.
Well, no, that's what Bain is a venture capital firm. It's a white knight that comes in to save companies.
It's hardly a white knight.
Companies that are failing, they don't even buy them unless they're failing in the first place.
I don't want to use color terms. I won't call it a black knight. We could just call it Darth Vader. Here's what we know they do, okay? They take a company that's a going concern. What they do is they do a leveraged buyout. Rather than using their own money, they use the company's own money and own assets. They borrow against it to buy the company. Then they declare bankruptcy that the company doesn't pay all the pensions of its workers that have worked there for 30 years. They cause the company to go bankrupt. They take hundreds of millions of dollars out for themselves, so they make hundreds of millions while the workers who worked there for 30 years lose. That's what happened in the Kansas City steel plant. That's what happened in the paper plant. These are hardly companies.
That's actually not exactly the way it happened, Mark. They tried to save those companies. They tried to make those companies work. They tried to turn them into profitable concerns. They didn't get involved in those companies until they were already failing companies.
Should Bain make a profit when the company goes bankrupt and all the people lose their jobs? Don't you think when that happens, at least Bain shouldn't make hundreds of millions of dollars? Is that fair to ask? Did he not profit from people's misery? If I'm going to buy something and it fails, shouldn't we all go down together?
Well, no, I don't think that's quite the way the world works.
If I buy Facebook, which I shouldn't have done, right, at the opening offer of
my condolences,
it wasn't that much. But if you buy it, it's a bad investment.
38.
It's a bad investment. It's now 18. Facebook is losing money. And the investor loses money too.
Are you going to buy now?
I probably not. I don't trust Facebook. But the point is that it seems to me that it doesn't make sense for Bain to make money while the company failed. Is that fair to ask? I didn't like when AIG made money when the company failed.
Well, let's talk about Harry Reid for a second. Now, Harry Reid has this imaginary friend that works for Bain.
Okay, I'm waiting for the segue here.
And he says that, I got this phone call from my imaginary friend, and he said that
Mitt
Romney hasn't paid taxes in 10. He said in 10 years he hasn't paid taxes in 10 years. Now, Mark, most people,
there's a way to disprove that.
Most people who are 5 years old do have imaginary friends. Unlike Harry Reid,
Clint Eastwood has an imaginary president.
Most people outgrow them by the time they're 5. Harry Reid apparently is still in his 5s. What is this?
I'm really glad you brought up Mitt Romney's tax return.
What is this that, I know he hasn't paid taxes?
I'm really glad you brought up Mitt Romney's tax returns.
It's bull.
Well, we don't know whether it is or it isn't because he hasn't released his tax returns.
Mark,
why has he not?
The president has his own people over at the IRS. If you think he hasn't ordered a full audit by now and
taken a look at those,
he's not allowed to do that. I know he's not allowed to, but
no one has done that since Richard Nixon.
He wasn't.
You know of another president that has?
He wasn't allowed to get Jack Ryan's divorce records out of the courts in L.A., but he managed to get them, didn't he?
The President Obama? No.
No, that was Senator Obama. Excuse me. He managed to get. Obama has a history.
Court records are public, unlike like IRS.
No, this was a sealed divorce record for Jack and Jerry Ryan.
Let me ask you a question.
And Obama wound up with it, and, you know, of course he went to the IRS. Of course he knows what's in there.
We don't know that. Mitt Romney's father, George Romney, released 12 or 15 years
and that's
of tax
relevant
returns.
to what?
Every president of the United States since the 1960s has released at least 5 years of tax returns. Mitt Romney would be, if he won, would be the first president that did not. What do you think Mitt Romney's hiding? Why won't he do what everyone else does?
He's hiding nothing, and you know what, Mark?
Why won't he release his returns? What's the big deal?
I've been involved in politics for 40 years. I have been actively done things. I've occasionally read a platform, although not often. I have never looked at anybody's tax returns when they've been released. It's not relevant. It's not important. And
it's not relevant.
The American
this
people,
guy's running on his business skill.
The American people are more concerned about their own tax returns than they are about somebody else's. They want to know are they going to have a job and even going to have to file a tax return.
Let me tell you what I think he's hiding.
24 million Americans don't have jobs and don't file tax returns.
Let me tell you what I think he's hiding. So far, he's only released 1 year. He says he's going to release another year, but the election's in 2 months. He's released 1 year tax return.
When this year's taxes are, and that's a sad commentary
which
on
we're
the
due
tax
in
code.
April, and I guess he's got an extension until October.
He does have an extension, yes, and it's perfectly legal. And
he released
why is
1 year.
Why is the tax code so complicated that it takes that long to do your taxes?
He released 1 year. That 1 year was only after he had time to put everything in order. It was for the year of 2011 when he knew he was running for president. And even in that tax return.
No, it's for 2010.
It was
2011 is the one that's going to get released
Excuse me, you're right. It was for 2010. Still in contemplation of running for president. He had plenty of time to do what he could with his assets. And what do we find in that 1 year he released? Cayman Islands tax returns, Swiss bank accounts. This is a guy who's used every little offshoring loophole he possibly could to try to avoid paying taxes to Uncle Sam. This is a guy who's paying a smaller tax rate than the people who work for him. He's paying less than 14%. I think in those tax returns is more of the same, even to a greater deal. If it was the same amount, he released those as well.
Okay.
I think that this is a guy who's using every loophole that's possibly out there. He doesn't want to do that because he defends those loopholes.
Here's the deal. I am sure I would be shocked if Obama for America did not spend over $1 million with the best tax attorneys in the country, sicking them on that tax return and saying, find me something I can use.
No, but they haven't. They haven't. Obviously, I think even Hustler Magazine has put out an ad, $1 million.
Here we are 6 months later, and there's nothing in there. They're perfectly legitimate.
What do you mean there's nothing in there? He hasn't released his tax return.
They're perfectly legitimate.
Mike, your argument goes something like this.
I'm talking about the 2010 tax return. They spent probably $1 million saying, analyze that.
1 year.
Find me something I can use. They found nothing. It's a perfectly legitimate tax return.
What happened in 2009 with Swiss bank accounts? Are you aware of this? In 2009, the IRS, because there were a lot of secret Swiss bank accounts, gave a one-time amnesty to Americans who had not paid their taxes. If they declared it in 2009, they'd get amnesty for not paying their taxes due to Swiss bank accounts.
Mark, don't tell me.
It would not surprise me if Mitt Romney took advantage of that amnesty, and that's why he didn't want to.
Don't tell me you have an imaginary friend too who's telling you about Mitt Romney's tax returns.
I know that happened in 2009.
You're better than that.
I don't know what Mitt Romney did. Folks, you want to join in the discussion? Join us. 888-488-6275. Back after this.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo.
I would like to speak English better.
Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
Would you notice if you were missing half your kidney function? According to the National Kidney Foundation, 20 million people have chronic kidney disease, and 20 million more may be at risk and not even know it. Anyone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or family history of chronic kidney disease is at risk. Early diagnosis is vitally important. To get the whole story, talk to your doctor and visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org or call for a free brochure.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. This is Mark Levine. I am hosting Mike Lane. He's the president of Intelligent Strategies. We're discussing the election. If you want to call in, we encourage you to do so at 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. The local number is 571-749-1166. Apparently we had a call from Ken from Loudoun County, but we dropped him. So please, Ken, call back. We'd love to hear from you. It doesn't matter who you agree with. You can disagree with both of us. We want to hear from you. Mike, I want to play for you just one tiny part of a very long speech of Bill Clinton's. I got to say, as a Democrat, I hear that song, Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow. And I have no doubt, by the way, that this man, Bill Clinton, could win re-election tomorrow against any Democrat or Republican in the country. Do you dispute that? I mean, if he weren't for the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution.
I think he would be likely to get the Democratic nomination.
He could beat any Republican.
I'm not going to concede the general
Ronald
election.
Reagan's dead. Who could beat Bill Clinton on the Republican side?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Lot of people.
Nobody.
Bill Clinton has had 12 unencumbered years of rehabilitating his reputation, of positioning himself, etc. When people start remembering the rather negative aspects of his presidency, I believe that...
As I recall, we had, no war except for a war to stop genocide in Kosovo. We had the greatest surplus and the greatest peacetime expansion in American history. But we won't redebate the 90s. The only thing I think he did wrong was something sexual that I hardly remember. But I want to get to our caller from the line. This is Ken from Loudoun County. Ken, welcome to the show. Are you there, Ken?
Hello? Hello?
I can't hear him.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? I'm calling in with respect to the tax returns. Mitt Romney. So let's just say he gave 10 years of tax returns for the people that are requesting it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, are you going to add up how many millions of dollars of taxes that he actually paid, compare that to the national average?
Well, I don't think he will disclose his tax returns, Ken, because I think he's got something to hide.
Wait a minute, I can't hear you. What did you say?
I don't think he will disclose his tax returns because I think he's got something to hide.
No, but I asked you specifically that if he did
I'd look at those returns.
What about the last 2 years?
Well, so far he's only released one.
Dollars he paid in 2010?
So far he's only released 1 year. I do suspect he will release another year.
But do you know how much that is?
Yeah, it's less than 14% of his income, which is far less than the vast majority of Americans pay.
But what is that exact amount that he paid?
It's not the amount, it's the percentage. Do you really think that...
Oh, it's not the amount.
No, because I'll tell you something.
So I just was wondering, I'm not speaking for Democratic or Republicans. I think every conversation that's related to economics, being a United States veteran who served this country and also a businessman, we need to start the conversation with Democrats and Republicans on how in the world are we going to get rid of $6 trillion worth of debt, freshly created over the last 4 years, and we're now at $16 trillion.
Well, Ken, let me address your issue. Ken, let me address your issue.
Not Mitt Romney or President Obama or any of this. That's for children.
Hang on, Ken, because you're making a lot of points. I want to address your tax issue first, and I do value your service, and I want to thank you for serving your country. Yeah. Mike is a veteran as well. But in terms of taxes...
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you, Ken.
In terms of taxes, you said we have this huge deficit to pay down. Why do you believe that rich people should pay a smaller percentage of their income in taxes than middle class people? Would you agree with me that somebody who makes $100,000 a year and pays $35,000 or $40,000 in taxes is making more of a sacrifice than someone that makes $100 million a year and pays $10 million in taxes? I think they are. I think when you give up a third of your income, it's a lot harder on you.
You said that I think that rich people shouldn't pay more. Is that what you said?
That's right. That's what you think, right? You just told me it doesn't matter.
Why would you make that
hold on,
based
Ken.
on anything that I said to you?
Because you just told me it doesn't matter the percentage of Romney's income. It doesn't matter whether he pays 1%,
no,
half
I didn't
of 1%.
Say that.
It's the amount
that
matters.
I asked you what his dollar amount was.
Yeah, but
you're the one talking percentage.
Okay,
sir.
that's right. You said percentages don't matter. Why do you think percentages don't matter?
He paid millions of dollars, but here's what I'm afraid of with
why do you think percentages don't matter?
And contrary to the other side of the argument, if we drive away the people that are paying a lot of income tax now,
drive away.
Arguably, the people that are doing. Excuse me, let me finish.
Drive away where? Where's Romney going to move?
Arguably, the people that are doing really well, and somehow we make the tax code so where they're not. They don't want to pay more, or they have a way not to pay more, and then we have the people that aren't paying anything now paying even less. We're not going to have any income tax.
Ken,
here's an idea that I have for
do you believe that Romney would leave?
Forward on income tax.
Wait, hold on, Ken. You said that we're driving Romney away. Do you think that Mitt Romney would leave America
for a foreign country? No, I didn't say that. I'm afraid of that. We're going to drive all rich people away.
Drive them away? Well, let me tell you something. In the Eisenhower era, we had tax rates over 90%. For the wealthiest people in America. And we also had a very strong economy, and we didn't have a lot of people leaving the United States for foreign countries.
Let's qualify your statement for a moment, sir. That was right after World War II, and the people in those days had an attitude about chipping in for America.
That's right. Why isn't Romney patriotic enough to pay his taxes? Why do you think Romney is not patriotic enough?
Now, come on.
He just said that people in the 50s wanted to chip in and support their country. Mitt Romney apparently doesn't.
Your question's a red herring. You said, why isn't Mitt Romney patriotic enough to pay his taxes?
Right.
Mitt Romney does pay his taxes. To answer your question...
At a lesser rate.
To answer your question directly, Ken, in the return...
Mr. Levine.
In the return that we're aware of, Ken, he paid over $3 million in taxes, and he gave over $3 million to charity of his own personal money in that 1 year. So I think that answers your question.
That's a lot of taxes on...
No, it's not. It's very little. You know how little $3 million is if you make $1 billion? It's very little. Or $100 million?
$15 million of revenue and $15 million of revenue in 2010.
I firmly believe that somebody
who's $100,000... You firmly believe that I'm not patriotic.
You're going to let me finish my sentence,
Go ahead.
Ken, I firmly believe that somebody who makes $100,000 and pays $35,000 suffers a lot more paying those taxes than someone that makes $100 million and pays $3 million in taxes. I frankly think that millionaire, it's just a balance, it's just a check in a balance book. He can still afford his car elevator. He can still afford to have a horse prancing ballet in the Olympics. This guy doesn't hurt. He can pay a lot more taxes than someone struggling to get their kids through college and holding 3 jobs. I do. I think he can. You don't think so?
Earlier in your show, you were mentioning the places where you had offshore accounts and things like that.
Right.
Well, we are driving the people that are successful in this country away from this country. Look at the guy.
If they hate America enough to do that, go away. If they're not willing to support their country through taxes, then leave. Give up your citizenship. I don't want you to be an American if you don't care enough about your country to pay your taxes. I say go away.
Well, I think they pay their taxes.
You're saying that he didn't pay taxes.
Well, he paid
a lot of money on $15 million.
He paid less taxes probably than you pay, Ken. A lesser percentage of his income.
And there's one thing that the gentleman next to you didn't point out about the charitable tax, that money that he gave. He didn't write that off either. You're suggesting by
he didn't write off his charity? Of course he did.
Mitt Romney. No, he did not write that off.
Sure he did. He took a deduction like anyone.
He gave that money free and clear of a write-off.
No, I'm sure he wrote it off.
You're suggesting by virtue of by the way you phrase your argument, you're making it sound like Mitt Romney is a bad person. We're talking about, let's get real, gentlemen. We have a $16 trillion debt here.
Right, but you don't want Mitt Romney to pay his fair share.
You want to hear it? Would you like to hear it?
Why do you think Mitt Romney shouldn't pay taxes to pay down that deficit? Wouldn't that be a great way to cut down on that deficit?
How can we get it paid?
I say raise his taxes to a level that he can afford.
Let me tell you exactly how we can get it paid down. And this debt is gone. It's going to take about 50 to 100 years minimum. But here's how we can get started on it.
I don't know. Bill Clinton had it all balanced.
Let's say someone making $100,000 or less a year, and the small businessman hires him. Are you listening?
Yeah, we are. Go ahead, Ken. Sorry, I was just
Small business person hires him. So, okay, you're getting paid $100,000, okay? Small business person writes his payroll check. The small business person's not involved in taxes. We have pre-qualified banks that can cash payroll checks. That's between the taxpayer and the individual. We have to come up with a fair, flat rate, okay?
So if we paid a flat rate, Romney would pay more. No, I want you to think about this here. If we had a flat rate of taxes for all income, capital gains, or ordinary income, whatever it is, Mitt Romney would pay more taxes because right now he is paying less than 14%, and I suspect most of our viewers who are watching right now pay more than 14% in taxes. So if we had a flat rate, Mitt Romney would pay more. Do you think he should pay more? Do you think Mitt Romney should pay more?
That's the argument that you guys...
Ken, do you think Mitt Romney should pay more taxes?
Wait a minute. Here we go.
Well, just tell me, do you think he should pay more taxes? Yes or no?
Flat taxes get more revenue and
so you think Mitt Romney should pay more taxes? So you think Mitt Romney should pay more taxes?
This is what I think right now in America, okay?
Ken?
You take the burden of tax paying off the small business, we're going to have a zillion more businesses in this country, and we won't have to worry about the $trillion or $16 trillion
I got a great idea, Ken. If nobody pays taxes at all, then we remove the burden entirely.
Is that what I said, or did you not listen?
Well, you didn't tell me whether Mitt Romney should pay more taxes or not, and I know why you didn't tell me that.
When the person gets a payroll check, they take it to the bank and cash, and that's between the individual and the government.
Ken,
but you were talking over me, sir.
Yeah, but you never answered my question, and you
that would stimulate.
Ken, will you answer? If you don't want to answer my question, you don't have to. The question for you is very simple. Do you think Mitt Romney should pay more taxes or not? But you're not going to answer that question, are you?
I'll answer it for him. The answer is no. Mitt Romney should not pay more taxes. Mitt Romney should not pay more taxes.
Thank you, Ken, for your call.
Nobody should pay a penny more in taxes than they're legally required to pay.
That's not my question.
That was your question. Should he pay more in taxes? No, he should not pay more taxes.
My question is not whether people should pay more than they're legally obligated to pay. My question is whether we should change the tax code so that a guy like Mitt Romney pays more of his fair share in taxes.
I understand.
That's my question.
I understand this is your show, but I want to ask you three general philosophical questions here that may get us to an answer to your question.
Fair enough.
The first is, as a matter of principle in the United States, we have taxed capital gains at a lower rate than ordinary income for purposes of...
Some presidents have. Ronald Reagan didn't, for example. Ronald Reagan taxed them all at 28%.
We have historically...
Many times,
taxed capital gains at a lower rate than ordinary income as an incentive to provide for increased capital investment in the economy to make it grow and create jobs. Do you disagree with that approach?
I do. I do disagree with that approach. I think capital gains...
So we should not incent capital to come to America and because right now we discourage capital from coming to America.
Half of all capital gains taxes are paid by people who make more than $1.5 million a year.
I'm not talking about
Ronald Reagan had it right when he taxed ordinary income and capital gains at the exact same rate.
I'm talking about, should there be an incentive for capital to come to America and be invested here, or should the incentive be for capital to move offshore and create investments in foreign countries and help their economies instead of ours?
I think labor is as important as capital. I think we should tax labor at the same rate as we tax capital.
Okay.
But I'll give you a chance to ask those two other questions. We have to take another break. If you want to join in the crossfire, I encourage you to call in as well, not just Ken. You can call in too. 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275, or locally 571-749-1166. You can also follow us on the web at marklevinetalk.com. Back after this.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. Because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. My name is Mark Levine. One of the reasons I like inviting Mike Lane on the show is that we can start talking about the convention, and soon we get into the details of tax policy. You never really know where this show is going to go. I want to thank my caller, Ken from Loudon. We certainly didn't agree, but I appreciate him calling in. So, Mike, you said you had two more philosophical tax issues.
Philosophical questions. Maybe not tax questions, but yeah, I guess they are.
Go ahead.
They're philosophical questions.
Go for it.
First is, let's say someone has $5 million that they're going to pay. Let's leave the legal tax rate out of this for a minute.
Okay, I don't know how they know they're going to pay something without
because
the legal
this
tax
is their
rate.
budget. In their mind, they're going to give away $5 million, or they're going to have $5 million that they're going to pay. It's not going to be a tax.
People don't decide how they pay their taxes.
This is a philosophical question. This is not grounded in reality.
You mean to the government, to America?
They're going to have $5 million they're going to spend. Is that $5 million better spent $1 million to the government in taxes and $4 million to charities to do good works for the American people? Or is that money better spent $4 million in taxes to the government and $1 million in taxes? Or is there another split that you would prefer? What is the better, more productive use of that money?
The reason why I think that most of the time government is more efficient than charities is because charities are all over the map. There's all kinds of charities. There are some very good charities. There's a bunch of charities that don't do as well. One of the things we know about, for example, Medicare, is that the efficiency rate is very, very high. 2 to 3% is the entire administrative cost of Medicare. When it goes through private insurance companies, it can be 15, 20%. I think you'll find that we, the people in the Constitution, right, we're the ones who get to decide these things, that if we jointly work out how the money should go, where it should go, I think that's a more efficient process. But I won't deny it. Some charities are very good. I would say some other charities are not very good.
Okay. For the record, we disagree. I think charities are much more efficient than the federal government. About the only thing the government really does efficiently is national defense.
I think Social Security and Medicare are very efficient. You don't think Social Security and Medicare are very efficient?
Social Security is the least efficient program we have. If we could take the money we start in the workforce with that we give to Social Security and privately invest it rather than give it to the government, we wind up with about a 1% return on investment when we give it to the government.
Well, no, but
you would wind up with, on average, if you invested it in the market, about 10% return on investment.
That's not what Social Security is.
It's the least efficient program the government runs.
Social Security is a transfer of wealth from current generations to past generations. That's what Social Security is. It's not a retirement program. We have IRAs, we have 401ks. In the 1930s, the people who got Social Security did not pay into the system.
I think the efficiencies are in the private market, but we'll disagree on that.
That's just not that's what Social Security is. What's your third point?
My third question is, and this is not an either or. This is an open-ended.
All right.
So you can you articulate for me any credible moral argument where the government has the right to exact in excess of 25% of the money that somebody earns from them? What would be the moral underpinnings and basis that we could take more than 25% of their money?
25, I don't think any percentage basically is, I wouldn't take 100%, but as I said, during the Eisenhower era, we took 90%.
And was that immoral?
That seemed a little high. Not immoral, but I think it's probably too high. I think Jack Kennedy was right to take it down to 70. Jimmy Carter took it down to 50. I think 50%. I wouldn't ever see a tax rate over 50%, barring some horrible war or national defense. To me, the moral thing is this. If the people's representatives support a war, for example, and I supported the war in Afghanistan. We were attacked September 11th. I wanted to fight back. I did not support the war in Iraq. But I would have been willing to pay more taxes to pay for the war in Afghanistan. I would have been against paying more taxes to pay for the war in Iraq, but that wasn't because I was against paying for the war. It's because I was against the war in Iraq. the idea that the American people can vote for all these things they want, whether it be wars or national parks or Social Security or Medicare or defense budget, whatever it is, and then say, but we don't want to pay for it, that to me is immoral. I think the answer is if you support benefits that cost more than 25% of your income, you should be willing to pay more than 25% of your income. Doesn't that make sense? Otherwise, you're living beyond your means as a taxpayer.
And I don't think they do. And I think that it's immoral for the government to exact more than 25% of anybody's income from them. And remember,
what if the people want a war? Should they pay for it?
Remember, this is before we have state income taxes and local income taxes and property taxes and personal property taxes. So when I say I want to cap the federal government's confiscation of people's income at 25%, we're still upwards towards 40% for some people who are paying taxes at all levels.
I know that
I find that unconscionable that we would take that much money from people.
I know you supported not just the Afghanistan war, which I supported, but the Iraq war as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you have been willing to increase your taxes to pay for that war, those wars?
Look, I already have admitted on numerous occasions to you that among President Bush's most egregious problems was his profligate deficit spending.
But would have been fair to raise taxes to pay for those wars.
I think the wars should have been paid for. Now, whether it's by cutting spending someplace else, or whether it's raising taxes, or whether it's because
that's a couple $1 trillion right there,
or whether it's selling war bonds, which is a very time-honored tradition.
That's a deficit. No, you got to pay that back.
No, but you're getting the income in time, and you're paying it back over time.
Isn't that what we do now?
No,
sure it is.
No, we never pay anything back.
We issue treasury bills. Those are war bonds. Those are bonds by another name.
The only time we ever pay anything back is when Newt Gingrich took over the Congress and passed
when Bill Clinton was president,
a balanced budget and a surplus.
Right.
The only time.
When Bill Clinton was president.
And the president has how much influence over the budget?
All I know is the same Republican Congress existed under George W. Bush.
Check your Constitution.
And they spent a lot of money.
Check your Constitution.
Yes, actually, it says that the House and the Senate
shall set the budget.
Spent a huge amount under George W. Bush.
And it was awful.
So here's the thing.
But even as much as they spent under George Bush, even as much as they spent, essentially, almost doubling the national debt during his 8 years in office, Barack Obama has blown that sky high.
You know why?
With his $6 trillion of debt.
How much of
3 years?
You know how much of that?
$6 trillion.
Mike, how much of that $6 trillion in debt is attributable to George Bush? More than $4 trillion.
Nope.
You know what it is?
No, it's
$3 trillion.
It's Obama's watch. He can cut whatever he wants.
$3 trillion were the Bush tax cuts, which the Republicans insisted that he extend. $2 trillion were Afghanistan and Iraq.
And Obama
wars begun under George Bush. Only $1 trillion was a stimulus package that everyone agrees saved the nation's economy from free fall. And that's gone. That's what's a one-time expenditure.
Allowing the people to keep their own money rather than the government taking from them is not spending money.
It's not
spending money.
The difference between Bill Clinton and George Bush
spending money
was the Bush tax cuts.
Spending money is
Bill Clinton gave us the surplus.
And almost $900 million. No, Newt Gingrich gave us the surplus.
Should we give tax cuts? Let's say we have a massive surplus, as we did under Bill Clinton, $200 billion a year, every year, as far as the eye could see. If you have a massive surplus of $200 billion and you have so much spending the American people want, is it moral to cut taxes so much that suddenly you take this massive surplus, $200 billion, and give an even more massive deficit of $2 trillion. Is that moral?
There should have been accompanying cuts in expenditures.
But there weren't.
And I know. I have admitted that Bush's spending was a big problem.
So the Bush tax cuts...
Mark, I've been on your show probably 50 times and said his spending was a big problem.
But the spending that Bush did, other than the 2 wars and the Medicare prescription drug benefit, was not that different from the spending that Clinton did, or Bush Sr. did, or Reagan did, or Carter did. We have been spending at this rate pretty much since World War II, frankly, very much.
It goes up, it goes up, it goes up, it always goes up. The
thing that's really skyrocketing, frankly, is Medicare. And that's the cost of health insurance. And frankly, we have Obamacare to cut keep those health insurance costs down.
We've gone up 16% in 2 years when Obamacare was going to bend the cost down.
We've gone up 4% in 2 years, the lowest increase in health insurance.
I don't know who you're paying health insurance to. Mine hasn't gone up 4% in 2 years.
They've gone up 4% according to the national. In fact, they've even given rebates. You know that. My uncle got a rebate because of Obamacare.
And all the rebates do is mean that they can't roll it into the next year's plan, which means the rates are going to go up that year because they're not starting with a big enough pool.
Here's my point,
it's a left pocket, right pocket accounting gimmick.
The American people want this level of spending.
No, they don't. They don't. That's it. They don't.
They don't want the spending when you talk about spending. But when you talk about, do you want to end the national parks? The American people say no. Do you want less highways? The American people say no. Do you want less Medicare, less Social Security? They say no, don't touch that. Do you want less defense? Republicans say no. Democrats are willing to cut back a little bit on defense. What is
That's a shame.
Where would you cut back to get $6 trillion in spending? If you look at the Ryan plan, he would have to, in order to pay for his plan and balance the budget in the 2030s, which I don't think anyone thinks he could do, he'd have to cut back everything that's not defense 90%. No more food safety. No more environmental protection. Come on. What would you cut? Where would you find $1 trillion of waste in the budget, Mike?
All right. The first thing I do is I would roll all spending back, absent defense and security spending, to 2008 levels, where it was before Obama. Spending pretty before low. Obama wasted $6 trillion.
No, he's cut discretionary spending.
No. I would roll everything back to 2008. No, except defense and security.
Defense, right.
To 2008 levels. And you know what? We're going to have to live with that, Mark, because
we cut back Medicare too, right?
During the Democratic convention, the clock ticked over to $16 trillion in deficit spending.
And the vast majority of it is caused by the Bush tax cuts.
No, Mark,
and the 2 wars.
Mark, tax cuts don't cause deficits.
Sure they do.
Spending causes deficits.
Mike,
you balance your spending to match your income.
Bill Clinton.
You balance your spending to match your income. You don't balance your income to match your spending. It doesn't work that way.
I'm going to quote Bill Clinton. I can explain it in one word. The word is arithmetic. Right?
Right.
You got money coming in and money going out. There's 2 ways to cause a deficit.
And
if the spending is greater than if the spending going out is greater than the taxes coming in, you have a deficit. There are 2 ways to fix that.
No, there's one way to fix it.
You either tax more or you spend less.
No, there's only one way to
will fix the deficit.
You spend less. That's the only way to fix it. If you tax more, you drag the economy and you bring it down. You create less jobs, less expansion, less economic activity, and you wind yourself up in a vicious downward spiral that's going to crash the economy.
For 40
years, we can't do that, Mark.
We've had fairly constant spending. I agree that under Bush and a couple wars and Medicare, it actually curved up a bit.
How about under
Obama?
But
the idea that we're going to cut spending to before World War II levels is a dream world. There's not a single American politician that will actually vote for that. Republicans say they are. Mitt Romney won't do it. Ronald Reagan didn't do it. George Bush didn't do it. No Republican or Democrat is going to end the national parks, cut food safety, and stop interstate highways being built in America. They're just not going to do it.
No one's going back to the 1930s, Mark.
Right.
Okay?
That's my point. We have to tax enough people to pay for a modern economy.
You know what? Our modern economy is going to be just fine. We need to get spending under 20% of GDP.
Tell you what.
That's the key.
When the rich pay their fair share, I think you'll find when President Obama's reelected, he'd be ready to do a grand bargain about spending, but only when the rich pay their fair share.
You know what? Everything Obama wants to do to punish the rich, the successful,
stop punishing them.
It's punishing them.
Pay the same rate they paid under Bill Clinton.
Everything he wants to do, he's run up $6 trillion in debt over 3 years, and everything that he wants to do would bring in $700 billion over 10 years.
We got to end the show.
And crash the economy at the same time.
The vast majority of the Obama debt was exactly caused by George Bush, whether it's the Bush tax cuts or the Bush wars.
Mark, does he sit in the chair?
At the end of the day, if the rich pay their fair share, I'm sure we can come. We had the great 90s under Bill Clinton. We can get those days back. Go back to those Clinton
Apparently
days.
the buck no longer stops at the president's desk.
Our time is up.
What a shame.
If you want to watch this show, go to marklevinetalk.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Mark Levine Talk. This is Mark Levine.